Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, Anita Finley.
We have such a beautiful woman here in our studio, and her name is just as beautiful. Her name is Davidson, and she is the assistant administrator at Regents Park of Boca Raton. Of course, we've had Gilda on, who is the administrator, and it's an interesting place. You go there, and I don't know how all these talented people can be so beautiful and friendly. I guess the person who hires everyone has a certain template, and everyone fits into it. But I said to Raven before we started the show, so Raven, how did you get that great name, Raven? I just love it.
Well, it is a unique name, and I like that it's unique. But I was born and then moved subsequently when I was very young to South Florida, but born in Northern California with hippie parents. And I was actually named after the midwife who was assisting in my birth. Anyway, there were complications, and I was born in a traditional hospital setting. But I was named after her for Raven.
Raven, and
yes.
I don't think I know another person named Raven but you.
Over the years, I've met one here and there, but it's very rare. Very rare. Growing up, I got a lot of Edgar Allan Poe quoted to me.
Well, and also Raven has raven hair.
Yes.
You'd have to. I mean, you could never be a blonde.
Yeah, that wouldn't really work.
We're not going to let you do that. So someone like yourself, I always ask, so how did you get into the healthcare field?
Well, I actually grew up in this profession. My parents owned a facility, a long-term care facility in North Miami. They opened their doors in 1992. And I grew up volunteering there, interacting with the residents, spending time with them, reading to them. And coincidentally, it was one of the first facilities in Florida to be intergenerational, where they actually had a preschool next door. And my father and my uncle ran the nursing home, and my mom and my aunt ran the preschool, and they used to do intergenerational activities between both age groups.
That is amazing. Well, so how did they get that idea to do that?
It was one of the first programs in the area, and there's a lot of benefits to senior citizens and children interacting, where the children can learn from the seniors' life experience. And as we all know, kids bring such joy to all of us, including seniors. So it was really an excellent program.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just learning so much about you. And, of course, somehow they found you at Regents Park of Boca Raton, and Regents Park is so splendid. And, of course, we have so many people on our show from time to time, and we feature them in our magazine, whether it's Jill Osborne or Leslie Curtis or so many of the other splendid people. And I just was saying before we started the show, there must be a template of how they get people who are so qualified and also attractive but so cheerful. You know, that's the one thing, Raven, and I'm sure you understand that more than anyone because you grew up in that field. And maybe your parents hired someone who was cheerful at the beginning, and then their cheerfulness disappeared, and hopefully they did.
Well, I think, Anita, it's a very challenging environment to work in, and so you do need to have a positive outlook because one of our biggest focuses for our staff is customer service, and you have to have the right attitude and be passionate about what you're doing. We don't want employees that are there watching the clocks, waiting for their day to be over. We want somebody who is in the moment, enjoying their day, enjoys, providing services to the elderly. Because face it, we have people that come to us who have just had a traumatic experience. Maybe they've had a hospital stay or they've had a fracture or an elective surgery, and they're feeling vulnerable. And that's when we need to step up and be there and be supportive to them.
So you've said something that I think is very important because we want to talk to people who don't really understand what a rehabilitation center is, what a nursing home is, where people are living there on a temporary basis and people who live there, for as long as they live. Why don't you share that?
Well, I think there's two different kind of types of stays that we would look at. It's your short-term stay and your long-term stay. So we do have, at Regents Park, we do offer both. And we have patients that come to us on a short-term basis for therapies. We offer multiple therapies. And they come after a hospital stay, whether they elected to have surgery because of a medical need or they had an accident, maybe a fall, and need to get stronger or had surgery because of it, and they come to us to recuperate, to get better. And then the plan is to go home. So we do have quite a number of patients that come for short-term stays. Our average length of stay is about 23, 24 days.
It's that long.
Mm-hmm, it is. And we try to tell patients in the hospital, to expect to be there about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. And it really has a lot to do with how motivated they are, and how much they physically are capable of doing as well, which we would, of course, bring their doctors into that conversation. But it's a process, and it's very much a place to return to your prior level of function so you can be successful when you return home or to your community environment. Nursing homes are no longer a place to go to die. Our plan is to get them recuperated so they can be successful when they return home.
And you brought up a good point about doctors. So if someone has a doctor, that doctor can still go there to the rehabilitation center and take care of them, can they not?
We would just need to have their physician credentialed through our program. So we would need their license, their insurance, all that normal stuff to make sure that they are on the up and up. And then, of course, their physician could follow them. We also have relationships with a number of physicians where if someone's physician did not want to follow them, we could give them a list of physicians they could choose from. Okay,
so let's just take the path of someone who has two things. Let's go first with a person that is doing rehab. And what are some of the typical rehabs?
Typically, it could be somebody who may have suffered a stroke or a TIA and needs to have therapy to get back to their prior level of function. We do offer all of the therapies: physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, if you are having problems eating, swallowing, those kinds of things, which is frequent in patients who have suffered a stroke. We also offer 24-hour respiratory therapy. So if somebody is suffering from a respiratory illness, COPD, something like that, where they need oxygen or respiratory treatments, we offer that.
And so those people, can they come from the outside and not have to be in the hospital first? How does that work?
They can. It varies, and there's kind of a two-part answer to that. It really varies on, of course, we're dealing with healthcare, your insurance, and what your coverage is. Your typical Medicare patient, typically Medicare will pay for an inpatient rehab stay with us at a skilled nursing facility if you've spent 3 midnights in a hospital prior. So you do need to have, we call that a Medicare qualifying stay prior to coming to us, whereas Medicare would pay for your stay. As far as other insurances, we would verify your policy to see what your coverage is. If there isn't a hospital stay, we also at Regents Park offer outpatient therapy. So if you are in the community and you have the go-ahead from your physician, then that's a possibility as well, where you could come to our facility and we could provide some therapy.
Well, I do know that I did that because I know that I hurt my knee, the meniscus, and I know that I was there getting rehab. And so I didn't go to the hospital, and that's what you're talking about, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Medicare did pay for it, but he had me go there for 2 or 3 times a week, and it was really very interesting to watch the physical therapist because, I came in and then I left, but then I saw a lot of people who were there, and they were very serious. Some people were really struggling, whether it was stroke or some brain, trauma and all. But I was also thinking about sometimes people are home and they're having speech problems. They're losing their the strength. So they could actually do, if they had a doctor who would recommend that they go there, this would be an outpatient person. Now, whether they're going to be fully covered by their insurance is another matter. But it's like almost having consulting services there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, it is. And our therapists have all been with us a very long time, very knowledgeable. We have a very comprehensive therapy department with an excellent reputation. And again, like I said, we offer all the disciplines to really fit whatever the patient's need is.
All right, so let's take someone who really doesn't want to, but unfortunately has to go into long-term care. And do you have a lot of people who live there and don't go home?
We do. Essentially, we would recommend first and foremost that the family or the patient comes to take a tour. I always feel that, seeing how a facility is helps to, not that it's not a difficult situation, but it helps to alleviate some of that stress and fear when you can see it for yourself and you can see that, our long-term residents are smiling, they're clean, we have staff interacting with them, we have activities that are ongoing, family members that are coming in to visit. And we actually, on a side note, don't even have visiting hours at our facility because we want our family members to come in whenever it's convenient for them on off hours to see how our staff is interacting with our residents.
So let's say that baby boomers are listening, and they do have a parent who is really suffering some cognitive loss, and they, whether it's full-blown Alzheimer's or they're just being forgetful, and they decide they do need to protect them, and they want to come to Regents Park or Boca Raton. Do you have ways that they can come and be protected? So that if we don't want them to stray. I know there are places that are full-blown Alzheimer's care centers, and I know that's not what you are.
That is not what we are, but our staff is very versed in taking care of patients that have dementia and Alzheimer's and some cognitive impairment. We do have a Wander Guard system in our building where if we assess a patient who maybe isn't aware of where they are, or if they, really can't be aware of their own safety, we would apply a bracelet, and if they do try to leave, the door would alarm. So it's not a secured unit as some other facilities offer, but it does have a safeguard as far as that's concerned.
And, of course, I've been to Regents Park, Boca Raton, so many times, and it's really like a hotel. It is an amazing place.
Thank you.
And I can see where people who do live there probably could even live better. They're living in their own little tiny apartment, and there's no light in it, where you have these beautiful windows and the lake and activities. So, life is very interesting, and you've been in this business long enough to know that, yes, we hope that none of us have to live in a nursing home, that we would just be 100 and die in our sleep.
That would be the preferable way to go. But we know that's not always the reality. A lot of people come to our facility and they comment that it's very park-like. We have a lot of sitting areas outside in the gardens with umbrellas, and it's very serene. It's very nice for visiting. So we have a lot of families that enjoy coming and sitting outside and enjoying our Florida weather. But it's very much when our long-term residents move in and they do get to know our staff and we get to know them and their likes and their dislikes and their routines and their preferences for their meals, we become like a second family. And, I always tell our family members, we're not perfect. We try very, very hard. And if there is a problem, we'll do our utmost to resolve it to the best of our ability, because we want our residents and their families to feel like this is their home.
It's called food. When you're saying that. And I laugh about it because, unfortunately, the big comment is, this isn't the kind of food I used to have. And, of course, I always say to them, with my gerontology hat on, well, but your taste buds aren't the same as they were. And
That's true.
There's so many other changes. You can't have the salt that you used to put on your food. So that's the other thing. It's a little bit of an education for people. And I guess your chef probably has learned to cook with spices and certain kinds of, let's just say unusual foods that they can enjoy. Now, and it's funny. Even hotels are judged by food. So you probably have to have a very good dietitian. It isn't even a chef. It's a dietitian who knows what he or she is doing.
Right. Well, we have both. We have a full-time dietitian. We also have a diet tech who works with her. And we also have a few full-time chefs to cook our food. We actually offer, I think it rivals what you would get on a cruise ship or at a resort. We actually offer a great breakfast buffet Monday through Friday to our short-term patients, where you can have omelets made to order, eggs made to order, hash browns. It's great, and they really enjoy it. And coincidentally, our department heads rotate to be waiters and waitresses. So we all rotate, and
Really?
we actually help serve breakfast 5 days a week.
I think that is beautiful because you get to know the residents.
Absolutely.
And also they get to know you, and you probably get to eat there when you're doing that.
We do sometimes. Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds like it's like a honeymoon. Honeymoons are interesting. They're not exactly what you think they're going to be, but they've got a lot of good stuff. And the fact that you came from this as a young person, you came from this field, really is remarkable. And your parents did really a good job with you on this. Is this something you always thought you were going to do, or did you expect to do something else and you just fell into this?
I always wanted to be in the business of helping people. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to get there, but I always knew I wanted to help people. And I think specifically our senior citizens have, and their children have incredible stories and have lived incredible lives, and they're an amazing generation and have accomplished so much for this country. It's very, very heartwarming to be able to, right?
Too.
It's very rewarding to be able to sit with them and hear their stories and to be able to care for them.
Yeah, that's true. And there are so many people now living so much longer. Wrote a book with my husband in 1992, Lived to be 100 plus, and I remember making speeches and people just said, "Oh no, there's no way I'm not going to live that long." But with care, the way that you provide at Regents Park, Boca Raton, people can live much longer, and it's not just that they live longer; they will have a higher quality of life. Just picture that person living alone at home, and it can be very dangerous, as you know. Very lonely.
Mm-hmm. Very isolating.
Yeah, very isolating, exactly. And it's, as I said, it is dangerous because people fall and then there's no one there. And even with these buttons, and that's fine, but it's scary. It's a long day for someone to be up. They get up at 5 a.m, and by 8 o'clock, they want to go to sleep. And so I think that people, it's not for everyone. Nothing's for everyone. There are people who say, well, I'm never going to go to nursing home. I'm going to go on cruises. And I'll just take a cruise every month, and that's how I'm going to live. Everybody has their own idea. But when it really comes down to it, when illness starts and affects you, you almost don't have the choice. Hopefully you have parents, adult children, who are now watching over you. And that's probably something that we can talk a little bit about. You were very lucky to have parents who were, of course, very knowledgeable. But you probably have to do a lot of training, and I ought to tell people again just who you are. I want to tell them your position. It's Raven Davidson. She's assistant administrator at Regents Park, Boca Raton. And let me tell you how you can get more information. You can call 561-483-9282. 561-483-9282. Remember, this is Pencil Talk Radio, and Regents Park of Boca Raton is located on Verde Trail in Boca Raton. And you can always get to their website, which is regentsparkboca.com, regentsparkboca.com. So let's go ahead then and talk about, it's one thing to get that older adult in there, but then I think there's a whole course that you have to teach their family, because let me just say one thing. When they're there all the time, I don't think you need to teach them anything. It's the ones that come down for that month on the weekend where they come down and nothing is right.
It's a challenge, and family dynamics, as we
cute.
all know, are a challenge, and it's one of those things that's an ongoing struggle, if you will. But it is one of those things we focus on with our staff and in administration, where it boils down to two things: expectations and customer service. And we focus very, very much on customer service because long-term care is not just the medical; it's also it incorporates a lot of hospitality with what our building looks like aesthetically and our food, like you mentioned. So it's kind of goes hand in hand with good care and hospitality and customer service. And then along with that is educating our families on expectations and the differences between a hospital and a long-term care setting and what you can expect in both.
That's a good point, Raven. I just heard, I guess it was a television show where the person really had so many problems, and they didn't want to be revived if that happened. And yet the kids came down and they actually took over, and they made that poor mother, who is now almost 100, with the tubes, and they wanted to keep her alive. And that's what I'm saying. I'm hoping the people who are listening to the show, we don't want that to be you. you want to really realize that if you can't have a high quality life and the person whom you are the loved one or the person you're caring for, if that's their wishes, you have to respect those wishes. Do you run into this, Adan? I'm sure you do.
We do run into this, and we run into it on a very frequent basis. My social services department is really excellent about delicately handling this situation with both our residents and our families. I would say if there's any advice out there, it would really be to sit down with your parent and really discuss, what they would want done if they weren't able to voice that for themselves, and really to have your advanced directives completed ahead of time so that your children really know what you would want done if you weren't able to make those decisions for yourselves. Because we all think we know what's best for our parents and we want to do the best we can for them. But sometimes we have those children that, want mom and dad to live forever, and we know nobody's going to live forever. So we do have to have sometimes difficult conversations with our loved ones, and it's best to have those conversations when we're able to, so we're not guessing when the time comes.
That's a good point. And of course you ought to have your elder law attorney that of course fixes all those and makes up all the documents. But sometimes and when the emotions are running high, they forget, that I know mom said that, but that we don't want to do that, and it's very, very difficult. And so that leads me to another question. Do you have then hospice also there at Regents Park?
We do. We contract with 2 different hospices that are in the local area, and we offer their services as an adjunct to the care that we provide. So if somebody does need that palliative hospice level of service, they can stay actually right at Regents Park. Obviously, if the family wishes for them to go to an inpatient unit with hospice, that's always an option.
That would be very foolish.
In conjunction with hospice.
Yeah, that would be very foolish.
Especially with our long-term patients, we frequently say, they lived here maybe for years and this is their home, and, they're our staff consider them family, and then to go to a new setting to pass away just doesn't make a ton of sense. So that
does come up.
It does come up, yes, often. And, if that is their time, and we never know when that's going to be, obviously. But we try to make it as all-inclusive as possible, where our staff is there providing care, hospice is there also providing care, so you end up with really a lot more services, and you're left to die with dignity in your home.
So, Raven, people who are listening, if they don't have anyone living currently or staying at Regents Park, can they actually call you, and can they have this kind of conversation with you? Would you be willing to do that? Because I think you are really so smart, and you have such a knowledge. You've been really in the business a long time, and you're very kind, and sometimes people don't know who to go to.
Absolutely.
But that's something they would do?
Absolutely. We strongly encourage that, and any of the listeners can call myself. I know you gave the phone number, but my direct extension is 2403, and they can call me directly. They can also call my admissions department, Gilda Osborne, who's our administrator, Leslie Curtis, who's director of business development. We all strongly encourage people to come tour. I like for you to see the facility yourself. If it was my loved one, I'd walk in and I'd see how my staff were interacting, if they were smiling, if there were smells, which we know sometimes happen in long-term care, but we want to make sure that that's not the environment somebody who's coming into tour is walking into, that things are clean, and that it's a positive experience. So if anyone would like information, absolutely, anytime people can call me.
That's really wonderful. The phone number again is 561-483-9282 if you just want to have a tour. But if you want to talk specifically to Raven, and you'll be very thrilled to meet her, her extension is 2403. And if you forget any of that, just ask for Raven. You won't forget that.
I'm
Think
the only
of this
one.
Beautiful blackbird. She is the assistant administrator at Regents Park of Boca Raton. And I've met a lot of people in this business, but you are sparkling. And I think that after a while, some people just get so tired of doing this. But it sounds like this is such a wonderful challenge and opportunity for you to know that that person, when they do pass away, at least had some very high quality life.
Yes. they become an extension of our family. And I think we have a great team at Regents Park, and we really feel like our patients, our residents, are our family. I tell my staff, it's our privilege to work in their home. And,
That's
we
lovely.
provide their care so that they have the best quality of life that they can have.
How long have you worked there?
It was 10 years this past July.
You are so young. It was 10 years.
Yes.
My goodness. I'm not even going to ask you how old you are, but you look fantastic. That's just
Thank you.
10 years.
Thank you.
Well, then you've seen a lot of changes in Medicare. You've seen a lot of changes actually in healthcare as far as, I even want to go further with what doctors can do to prolong people's lives, high quality lives.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. We have a really great team of doctors that we work with. We work with a number of physiatrists who come to the building as
Tell
well.
people what a physiatrist is. I know, but a lot of people, this is an unusual
In a nutshell,
profession.
a physiatrist manages pain management. So they work very closely hand in hand with our rehab department as a consulting physician, to make sure that things are managed so someone can excel as best as possible and have the best results in therapy.
That's right. So it's not an orthopedic surgeon and it's not a physical therapist. It's an MD, but just concentrates on the pain that's caused by, your limbs and your other your body parts. So yeah, physiatrists. I'm glad that you have them. They're not very common.
We actually have 3 physiatrists. Yes.
Where did you find
3?
them?
Through
Here
a number
in
of different
South
relationships
Florida.
and physicians that we work with. But they actually consult at our building. They're all 3 of them are at our building multiple times a week, and they work with our therapy department very closely, as well as our physicians very closely. So they're a great resource and really help the success of our short-term rehab patients.
Well, Raven, it looks like we've done it, haven't we? We've done a great show. I loved having you come here and talk with me, and thank you very much. I hope people will contact you.
Absolutely. They're welcome to. And thank you, Anita.
It's my pleasure.